I use the example, gasoline, right? Gasoline's good, right? That 5 gallons you keep in your garage helps run your car if need be, your lawnmower, your chainsaw. In the case of cholesterol, it makes all these steroid hormones, DHEA, pregnenolone, progesterone, testosterone, right? So it's a good thing.
Okay.
Unless you have a house fire, that gasoline becomes a liability right quick, doesn't it?
I've learned a lot over the 4 decades of health and fitness and being in the trenches with the greatest in the world. And one of those things I've learned a lot more about and how to build better muscle is nutrition and how it has changed over the decades. And that's why I have the Titan meal plan for you guys out there that are confused about nutrition. I'm gonna set you straight. Get a hold of me today. The link will be in the comments down below for you guys. Everybody, get over to the Titan meal plan, and I'll see you in the Titan crew where I will fine tune any difficulties that you're having. You said a couple of things. You said you get a lot of, I'd rather put it a more toxic way. You get a lot of people talking on social media. How would you recommend somebody out there that goes, I want to go to somebody, but I want to go to somebody good? Because the social media, you know, they hear these guys, and some of these guys, they talk so articulate. Mm-hmm. They can regurgitate and they can remember all the literature that they read, and they just spit it out and they sound great.
Boy, you're hitting some buttons with me.
Yeah.
It's not because of, and he thinks he does protest too much. It's not an ego thing for me. It's, this is my passion. I love doing this. And when I see some of this stuff, you're nailing it. I see guys out there way more articulate than I am. Okay. Does that mean that that person knows more or less? Possibly. But oftentimes, I mean, it's going back to gym days. I mean, I've had guys swear to me with the most passion they can drum up that this is the way to do it, man, and they spew something that has no basis in physics. It's absolutely impossible as to why you do a leg press this way or something. You're just going. But a lot of people, because of the passion with which it's being delivered and it being articulate, will go, wow, he must be brilliant. He's know what he's talking about. So, touche. But let me ask you this. Is Instagram or Facebook or whatever, social media, the way you would choose a physician or someone to deal with your health, or maybe a restaurant? Yeah. Go to Yelp, go to these things for those reasons, but do your homework and talk to. I would argue that the best way is to ask, maybe start with your primary care physician and say, do you know anybody that you trust who's this is their specialty? Have a friend who, you recognize and you go, dude, what's going on? And they go, oh yeah, I got TRT. And oh, well, who's your guy? Yeah. Start there, and then you can do some research on the internet that's not using Instagram, although reviews can be helpful for other reasons as well as, okay, what are the qualifications? But there you go, start again. What are the qualifications? Okay, and that's one way to determine if something you're even deciding to listen to on Instagram, just for informational purposes, is a good start. I mean, I see guys that are being interviewed in some of these podcasts that have no credentials, right? Haven't been around the block. They're not doers. They're bookworms, but they have no clinical practice. Some may or may not have a PhD, and you're just going, man, why should we listen to you? The problem with all that I'm saying is you can have someone who's got degrees up and down and a clinical practice, and they still might not get it right. So I'm not giving you an answer, except that it's very difficult.
And I'm 100% with you, because social media has made actors out of everybody. There are some really articulate people that can regurgitate the information that they've read for years, and with no time in the trenches or didn't develop themselves even, can get out there and spit it and get great following. And again, it's a tough thing, and we can't really answer that. But I love your point though. Who your doctor is, talk to them, see if they have a recommendation to somebody, and then go from there. And then again, I like the idea that you said, if you have a friend and that friend is getting good results,
it's a good place to start.
Good place to start. At least go talk to the doctor and stuff like that.
You know what's been fun over the years is being a member at Gold's forever, since '86. A lot, and then when I started practicing medicine, a lot of information that I can at least start with comes from, I called them the doers, fellow athletes that you go, well, dude, how you pulling that off, man? How the heck you lift as much as you do and not get injured? You know, and I can name so many people from whom I've asked the questions and said, and it's given me a lead to look into study and try and justify physiologically, medically speaking, why that works, as opposed to the bro science, reasons that some people will attribute to it. And it's a great start, but if you can combine, the people that actually do, for example, lift all the way in the gym, where they do have the command over their body the way, we would all like to be able to get rid of fat and put on muscle, that do have the energy, that do all the things that we want to get out of life. I'm being obviously a little bit too broad there, but, and then combine it with the kind of research base that, someone who has, you have to have some skill when you get in there and research, because there's so many bad studies. There's evidence from really smart people, Ioannidis, for example, that 90% of what we read out there is garbage, okay? And what do they say, statistics, you can make up a case for just about anything, and same with studies. But if you can combine that with the research, like I say, with clinical practice, so you've got a doer, you've got a researcher, and someone who has seen thousands of patients, you got a good start there. It doesn't mean you got a winner, but think about how that all comes together.
It's that time again to get my blood work done to see where my numbers are. Again, the one big thing for me is I'm keeping track of it. It's so precise. I competed in bodybuilding and powerlifting and martial arts, but that was all over decades ago. And so how can I continue to keep this physique and be this strong at this stage? And so that is by optimizing my health with Titan Medical. It all stems from one thing: your blood work, what's going on inside of you. And that's the main thing that I'm focused about, is see how I can continue to not just be in the game. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be a weekend warrior. I don't want to say you got a dad bod. I want to be the pinnacle of the health and fitness industry decades after I competed. And I've always said this too. You got so many of these guys that were with me in the 80s and 90s, and they keep putting the pictures up from the 80s and 90s. I don't want to be that guy. I like the fact that I can still put up pictures of me today, even though I won the universe back in the 90s. That's the goal for me. I don't know what your goal is, but I can tell you this. I know you want to live, and I know you want to live your best life. And that starts with blood work. Over at Titan Medical, start today.
Einstein said, education gets you only so far, experience finishes it. And I love that, because you're somebody I can look at. And I've been to doctors, and I've gone to a heart doctor, and I walk in, and I'm like looking at this 280-pound slob, and I'm like, wow, you're my heart doctor. Oh, I can't wait to get my advice from you, my friend. I know you went through the schooling. What I love is that you and me have been at Gold since the 80s, and we're still here doing this, and you look like you do. So you didn't just do the work by studying. You also live it, and it is applied to you. And so I think that's a huge thing. And I wish more people on social media would look at all aspects of life. It's the trainer out there telling you, this is how you should train. This is how you're going to build legs. And he's got pencil legs. It's like, okay, all right.
Well, those things are obvious too, but at the same time, and I appreciate what you're saying, but it with all due self-deprecation, I guess, look, just because you got all those parts doesn't mean that you're going to get it right at all or all the time. Patients have to be their best advocates too. There is responsibility upon the person asking the question to take that information and apply it, be compliant with the suggestions. You got to give it a try and be observant as to, okay, what happens next? Did it work for me? Because that's the rub. We like to, in medicine, wrap up everything into a nice, neat little package that says, if this, then that. Well, the example I like to use, which is, apparent to a lot of people, is you give someone speed, amphetamine, and most of us will go and clean the garage twice and stay up 2 days, 2 nights doing that if you give a high dose, right? If you give that to someone with ADHD, okay, who's hyperactive to begin with, you can, with the right dose, actually induce sleep. So that idea that we can put everything into a nice, neat little package goes right out the window with just that example. Well, that's not the only one.
Yeah.
So you got to start with someone who again, I appreciate what
That's
you're
a great
saying,
analogy.
who has a grasp over it from many different angles that will help, but not always guarantee that we got a good start, and maybe the good hypothesis might be the diagnosis that we work with, and then you hope they have enough knowledge to come up with a commensurate treatment for it. But then you got to find out if it works, and that's not. I mean, that's when it kind of shifts to the patient more than anything, right? So it's not just a one-way street here; it's a two-way street. Patient has to be willing to follow through and make the observations. I can't tell you how many times that happened. I know it sounds silly, but I'll say, "Well, how you doing?" And it's like they're caught off guard. Like, didn't you come here with a problem? Well, did it get solved or not? And they're kind of, and now that you mention it, yeah, I think I had more energy. And it's like, you weren't paying attention for the last 90 days? You came all the way here and paid me gobs of money, and you're not, so you get my point.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It doesn't just end with the doctor that you pick, or whatever practitioner.
So we just finished one movie. It turned out great. I am loving it. I love the dailies that we see. On to the next project. You finish, you keep going, you keep trying to go. That's, I guess, a better way to say it. And this next movie that I have booked, this is going to take all of me. This is going to take slice to the bone, all the character development, but also I need to be able to move and grow and keep that strength through this process. You'll understand why that is after you see the movie, but keeping the strength is key when you're dieting. And so I'm going to show you how to do that on Power-Bodybuilding. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you over there.
Blood work's the first thing they got to do.
That's helpful for the reasons we mentioned, because that takes away a lot of the guesswork. And why would you want to guess when you can test? So the assays are pretty important. And again, you go back to which ones do you select?
And is there, because we have, I got some blood work here. Come here, scoot in, get close to me.
Keep your hands to yourself.
I'll try. So, one thing that I've always been concerned about, pull out your shades.
Necessary.
One thing I've always been concerned about is the amount of protein I've eaten for a lifetime, because I started this so young. And so I've always worried about the kidneys and the liver, because that was the one big thing, I think, especially in the golds, it's like you always hear about, oh, the guy's kidneys, all this. So from what you're seeing here, would this be a good panel, the CBC?
Well, so I'm looking at your blood urea nitrogen. In a healthy individual, we always talk about nitrogen balance with protein.
Okay.
I would say that's a good surrogate for, how much protein is this person eating? Okay. And again, it's a general marker of that. But that's at the upper end of normal, right? And this reference interval, I use that term again, normal, who cares? What we see most, that's still within, whatever you want to call it, acceptable range for most people. But I've seen 36, right? Does that mean, the question is there's a lot of that legend out there that, you're going to destroy your kidneys because of that?
Right.
Total garbage.
That's been a
I know,
thing
legend forever.
Forever. You eat that much protein, you're
going to kill your kidneys.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Where do you come up with that stuff? Now, if you've already got some sort of kidney
let's bypass
dysfunction.
that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's issues, there's issues. And
well, it's important though, because for
Go for it.
example, people look at cholesterol and go, "Oh my God, it's off the charts." You're going to have a heart attack. That's another one that's been around for 80 years now, and you just go, "Excuse me," there's no physiologic basis.
Jump onto both of these. Go back to the protein intake first, because this is interesting. Because it has been. That was a wife's tale in any gym I ever was at. It's like, just, you can do this now that you're in your teens and 20s, but 30, 40, 50, you're going to be hurting because your kidney's going to be done.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of rationales that aren't even worth, they say a fool's question is sometimes the hardest to answer, because you don't even know where to start. There are some conditions where you'll be instructed to limit your protein intake. Suffice to say that. But to then extrapolate to a healthy individual and say, well, you can't have protein at high doses, where do you come up with that? So that's why I was going to glom on to, I think, probably the more, in the gym, I get the high protein thing's a big issue, but so is it's also a cholesterol thing, more so across the country to the normal folks,
Right,
but the gym too, right? especially because anabolic steroids will raise your so-called bad and lower your so-called good cholesterol, which that's a whole other topic, calling it good or bad. In general, cholesterol is not an issue for someone who's healthy to begin with. Okay, and anyone who tells you otherwise,
even if the marker says otherwise,
on the stage, wherever you want, because any good cardiologist, and depending on who you listen to, like Mark Penn used to be out of Cleveland Clinic, or maybe Stephen Room over here at UCLA, they're in that top 5%. They'll tell you that 95% of the cardiologists don't even get this right. That's not fair, according to some, but it's the reality according to some of the top dogs out there, okay? And the point being that, if you go to a typical physician and they see that your LDL is above the reference interval, which, by the way, 0 to 99, do you know the last time I've seen that, in reality, in a healthy individual? You're on some weird diet, or you're already taking statins, okay? Or you're getting chased by lions on the Serengeti Plain on a daily basis, so it's lowering your cholesterol. It used to be, when I started practicing, below 160 was good. Then below 130 is good. Now below 100, no. Okay, I don't know where you're coming up with that, where you're getting that number, but my point is that they focused on this because most individuals that doctors may meet, the majority of, the average person, whatever you want to call it on the street, has inflammation in the arteries so that cholesterol can light that up, so to speak. It's a problem. But if you don't have inflammation, I use the example, gasoline. Right? Gasoline's good, right? That 5 gallons you keep in your garage helps run your car if need be, your lawnmower, your chainsaw. In the case of cholesterol, it makes all these steroid hormones, DHEA, pregnenolone, progesterone, testosterone, right? So it's a good thing.
Okay.
Unless you have a house fire, that gasoline becomes a liability right quick, doesn't it? Okay. If you have inflammation in your arteries, okay, cholesterol can become a problem. Just like if you had cancer, growth hormone, which is normally pretty good for humans, okay, in a high dose when you're young, and you need the long bone growth, but in a sufficient dose later in life too, so that you can regenerate tissue, organs, and keep fat off and that kind of thing. But if you have cancer, then boy, you better do what you can to keep that at bay, right?
It's not as simple as people, geez Louise.
But then you see the problem with medicine trying to do it the way they do it, wrap it up nice and neat. Oh, your cholesterol's high. You assume that and there's a reason to, because of probability, to say we should probably lower your cholesterol. I get that, but I think that's developed. I have a strong opinion here. I'll admit to it. That's because of the 3 to 5 minute visit. I haven't got time, the typical doctor, to explain it to you, to do further testing to see if you need it. And it's so much easier to start a script. Let's just lower it. Let's get the gasoline out of the garage, and then fire or not, we don't have to worry about it. But then you're skipping a point that, but that gasoline might be useful.
You have to, this kind of sucks in a way, because you have to be so cognitive and into your own stuff that you're doing, and not rely solely on the expert or the doctor you go see. Because I agree, the point of, again, I think every doctor is going to say, take the gasoline out of the garage. I don't got time to explain. I don't got time to explain this, that, and the other thing. Just get rid of it. Here's some meds. Done. You're out of my face. When that doesn't help the individual completely.
And that's a good check, by the way. We were talking about how to determine if you're getting the advice from the right person. If your advisor does not welcome a challenge, if that's the way he wants to see it, asking a question, go somewhere else. To a fault, and I'm not saying I'm a good guy and put myself in a different category, but because I think that way, for good or bad, I'll tell people how the watch is made, not just what time it is, to the point where it's a fault. And people are like, okay, dude. I had a guy sitting in the chair over here, and like, am I putting you so easy? Yeah, just tell me what to do, man. I don't highly recommend it. I just want to know what's going on. Okay, I get that. But for most of us, okay, knowing about it, I mean, look at all the social media stuff right now and what's getting hits. People want to know about this stuff when they can, right? Knowing about it helps so that you understand it. You tend to be more compliant if you understand it and go, oh, that makes sense to me. But it gives you the opportunity, if the doctor can't explain it to you or blows it off, to, well, you'll have a reason at that point, certainly to look into, okay, why is he blowing me off, or why isn't he willing to explain it to you, and you can go research it yourself. You can also double check with the explanation he gave you or she gave you and say, let me confirm that with some of the studies. Now, I realize that takes some researchability, but okay, here's where I'm saying, okay, if you want to be the best you can be, you got to take some responsibility too and do your research. But this is where it needs to start, really, not finish.